Hello, this is Anthony Cavino from the gallery at Lighthouse Book Ed Center, and tonight I'll be interviewing the founder of Lighthouse, Kathy Green, to learn more about her and maybe answer any questions that you might have had about her through the years. Now, Kathy, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Connecticut, in Old Saybrook.
Oh. Where did you end up going to school?
Well, I finished school in Saybrook, and I started going to American University in Washington, D.C. I actually wanted to be the first woman president.
What were your strong subjects in school?
History, political science, English. Yeah, I think those are my favorites.
What was your least favorite subject?
Math.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
Seems to be a not a popular
A constant,
one.
yeah, I know.
So, how did you get into the special education field?
It actually found me. It's like serendipity. You just happen to be in the right place at the right time. I had no idea. I'd never even met someone that had a disability. And I wanted to volunteer. I decided I needed to do something else with my life. So I went, they had a volunteer place in Norwich. They had these huge books. I mean, huge books that you sat there for hours looking through to find a place. And there was actually, I was living in Stonington, there was actually a place 5 minutes up the road that entailed volunteering for swimming. And I figured, well, that's close. It's 5 minutes away. It's easy. And it happened to be at the oral school in Mystic, at Little White Schoolhouse. They needed a volunteer in the pools. And so that started in January of 1987. And it was the first time I'd ever been with anybody with a disability. And they all had, at that time, physical disabilities. They were in the pools. It was heated. And I volunteered for a few months, and then I was asked if I wanted a job there.
Oh. Well, I guess that's just the start of history there.
I think so. I think so, because, again, if I hadn't picked that place, I don't think any of these other things would have happened. In 1992, Little White Schoolhouse that we were at and had been doing an extended day program closed. And in June of that year, one of the case managers I'd worked with called me and said, you know, Kathy, you could just start your own business with extended day. It should be quite easy. And I thought, naively saying, okay, sure, it would be very easy. And actually, part of it was quite easy. We incorporated in July of '92. We formed a board right away. And we were lucky enough to get a space in the Mystic Congregational Church because one of our board members was a member there. We had the big meeting room for 6 years while we saved money. We were able to get our 501c3, our nonprofit, within 6 weeks after the application went in, which our accountant thought was amazing. He'd never heard of that before. It usually takes a year or two. So I knew that I was on the right path because things fell into place quite easily for what you're doing, even though I had to do a lot of work. One of the nonprofits in the region that Grace Curtis ran gave us the first $1,500 for our insurance for first year. And then we had 2 students and 2 staff. And from there, it just kind of grew slowly. It started as I would call it like a train going out of the station very slowly, and then it got a lot faster over the years. But it was all based on what customers wanted. And so people wanted the extended day programs. 2 schools believed in us, and they sent their students, and then more students came. And then I was working 2 jobs, sometimes 3, and to keep this going because you don't take a salary or any money for a long time before you can do that. In 1996, we had gotten bigger and were running out of space at the church, so we asked, I met with the staff and told them that a year from that date in October, we'd have the money to move into our site here in Groton at 46 Plaza Court. I wrote 100 grants, and out of those 100, one of them was United Parcel Service. A year later, in 1997, myself and Terry Gerard, who was working with me, went to Hartford, and we received a check for $100,000 to open our first site. And we were the only ones in the nation to receive that. They wanted a small business that was going to have a great effect on its community. And we were just, I mean, it was just huge to be new, and also to be a year later to be so focused that we knew this was going to happen. From there, we renovated and moved into this site. And then we also received grants during that time from DDS to expand our evening programs to the 8 of them. We had a Saturday morning program for many years. And some of our students now that are entering our Transition Academy were actually in our first preschool program in Mystic, so that's a wonderful thing. We then opened a site in Main Street in Niantic for in 2003. In 2008, we opened our central office over here with our art gallery. We opened the digital media studio here. We opened the Transition Academy. We opened the Annex in 2008. And the Transition Academy was a house for young men with Asperger's syndrome. We had the Beckwith House, which is around the corner, which recently, a year ago, we opened as a DDS house. So we've just continually grown based on what the community wants. And again, it was a lot of work of just keeping your head down and keep going, and every day just doing one more thing. It wasn't something that I planned to happen that way. It just came to us because people knew that we were open to being creative and trying new things.
So as we approach 20 years, Kathy, where do you see the future of Lighthouse?
I see us expanding a lot more. I see us, we've had a great effect on this community. I believe that we could expand in more communities for what we do, especially our work with people on the spectrum, especially in the field of Asperger's syndrome. I think that I see the housing piece is huge, the social skills piece that we do with at the Transition Academy. I see all those pieces expanding. I see us working with other nonprofits and organizations, because I think that you need to when the economy's bad and try to share resources. I see our art gallery expanding in many ways and having that as a piece in some communities that draws other things into it. I think that for 20 years, I know we're in the toddler stage, we're still babies compared to a lot of other organizations. I think that we have accomplished a lot in 20 years. I don't think we've bragged enough about it or said that because we're too busy working, but I think that the next 20 years, or the generation that's now going to be taking this into the next 20 years, has a lot more technology and a lot more background in the area to bring it to bigger network of places, because you've got now this forum that you can do everything through technology. You don't have to physically be there anymore. So there's so much more for the world to do. So we're excited because we're going to be having a huge anniversary celebration in October. It's a little secret about what it's going to be because we want it to be extremely special. We've never had anything this big happen, so we're going to be announcing that every month through the year and talking a little bit more about it, but we're really excited about that celebration.
I know, I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, I know. I think so. It's going to be on October 27th. It's a special day. I think that the nice part is that that there's just so many possibilities.
Yeah.
I have to tell you, we're always put on the path we're meant to be on, even though we don't think so at the time. Every time we veer from the things that are important or that we're passionate about or that don't seem right, we're kind of get off our path. But I think that we're just led on the way we're supposed to go, and I think that that's what's going to happen over the next few years. It'll start showing us more and more the places we're going to go. You can create and implement anything you want, but if you're not going to sustain it for long periods, then you haven't achieved your purpose of providing services for or whatever you're doing for your business. So you constantly have to keep looking at it and recreating it, whether it's your first year, 5th year, or 20th year.
Well, are there any challenges that you face in running an educational business, and any of those challenges stem out of being a woman?
I think many times, like anything else, you have to prove yourself that you're able to do what you have told somebody. You have to be consistent. You have to be ethical. I think many times when you come to the table, historically, most men have been at the top of administrations in most schools, and women have been the teachers, and so they don't generally weren't at the table in the higher levels of running something. So a lot of times, you're underestimated at the table.
Yeah.
And it's just over a period of time where they know that you've done what you said, that there's equality at the table that way.
Yeah.
And I think that's for everything, men and women, to do that. But for women, I think that we do have to prove ourselves more.
Yeah. Who would you say is your role model?
Well, I've had a lot of good mentors over the years. When I started the business, and before then, I had a woman named Eleanor Saunders, Tommy Saunders, who was a school psychologist and mentor for me since the late 80s, was someone that I could talk to about the business. It was confidential and make sure that I was on the right page. I had Grace Curtis, who was an advocate in our region for families that had children with disabilities for many years, and we now have a conference named after her every year.
Mm-hmm.
She was another one that was an ear to see, am I on the right path? Are we doing the right things? Are we providing the right services? And they were both cheerleaders. I think you need cheerleaders in your life. That sometimes, like, they're not your mother, but they're the people that say, wow, you did a good job today, even when you didn't think you did. You just need those people. I also love people like Maya Angelou, that I like people or biographies about people that start with nothing and somehow they have achieved wonderful things. Where they started and where they ended up, it doesn't look like that should have happened. So I read a lot about people like that to sustain yourself through these pieces. But
how would you say your role model inspires you today in the work that you do?
I think that your role models change. I said right now I have a lot of younger role models, and I think it's because if you're really smart and you really listen in life and you really pay attention, you should be evolving all the time and learning and changing. And so while I had those two wonderful role models who were like my mother and grandmother over the years, I now have younger people they look at in amazement and say, oh my gosh, look at what they're doing now and look at what I'm learning from them. So I think that it's just paying attention to life every minute and listening to people and learning those little things. I don't think there's a day that goes by that I don't learn something. Even if it's not a good thing, I've learned it. And I take it in and just work with it so it's better the next day.
Yeah. If you have any, what would you say are your words to live by?
Words to live by? I think it's the golden rule. It's basically to do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. And it doesn't work all the time. I mean, some days we're really good at these things and some days we're not because we're human beings. But I think that we have given a lot in the years, not expecting anything back, but just because it was the right thing to do. And you find out that those things come back in tenfold to you. So it's just trying to do that every day. It's just a work in progress. Some days, again, I'm better than others and try to do the best thing.
Is there anything about yourself that you'd like to tell the audience that we haven't talked about thus far?
I'm an extremely focused person, or I wouldn't be here. And the details are important. Everything is in the details. But that for women, too, when you talk about women, we have lives that encompass a lot more than just coming to work. We have to multitask on every level all the time, whether it's taking care of parents, taking care of children, taking care of the things at your house, still running a business. I am back to exercising more, which I love to do. I love Zumba. I didn't think I'd ever love something like that, but I love those things. And these are the new things that every year I try to add one new thing to my life that is different and that works for me. I love working in the arts. That's why we have an art gallery.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite things here that we provide.
Well, this concludes our interview with Kathy Green.
Wow.
I certainly learned a lot about her, and I hope that you guys did too. And this is Anthony Cavino from the Gallery at Lighthouse, signing out.